Having a practitioner come and do a risk assessment with you, if it's not delivered in a way that is conversational, is relational, is about understanding our experiences, and instead is delivered as a process, as a form, as a tick and flick, it feels awful. It feels very transactional. You feel like a number rather than a person, and there's no trust building in that. My name is Geraldine Bilston. I am a mother, I'm a student, I'm a board director on a little refuge, a family violence refuge in Victoria. I'm also a student. I do some professional work in the gender-based violence space, and I'm also a victim survivor of intimate partner violence. I think the things that I want practitioners to really think about and take into their practice is to slow down, is to take the time and to remember that this is deeply relational work. And when I think back to that time in my own life where it was the first time that I'd had a specialised service step into my life and go through a risk assessment. I was sitting at the kitchen table with my mother next to me and having a practitioner literally ask questions off of a form, including about sexual violence. And I couldn't talk about that in that setting. I felt protective of my mum in terms of talking about that in front of her. And it wasn't until a long time later that a practitioner would actually prompt me about those things and ask me about those things in a way that enabled me to actually talk about it and actually unpack what was going on. I would like practitioners to know that I felt a deep sense of relief when they showed up for me, and that I knew from their practice and from the way that they interacted with me that they were there for me. There are possibilities in this work, and what I would want the practitioners who worked with me and supported me during that time to know is that you changed the trajectory of my life. You helped save my life. Chelsea from the Women's Centre for Health and Wellbeing, Aubrey Wodonga, is now going to provide a demonstration of part of an assessment for strangulation. Keeping my experiences in mind, focus on the flow of the conversation, look for words or phrases that help to create a safe place for your client. If you identify moments in the conversation where you might have taken a different approach, take note, as they'll help you craft your own way of responding.
In this demonstration, I will be seeing Opal. Opal is a 33-year-old Anglo-Saxon Australian and mother of 3. Opal has been referred to me through another staff member at the centre. I was told in the referral she is coming to me for mental health support for increased stress due to the bank foreclosing on her house. Now being forced to move in with her mother-in-law, she feels extremely uncomfortable, and her husband died 12 months ago by suicide. Opal screamed for domestic and family violence by the referring staff member, and she disclosed that when he was alive, her husband was violent towards her. You must be Opal.
Yes, I'm Opal. I'm so sorry I'm late. The kids, I've got their lunches, so I had to go all the way over the other side of town, and there was traffic, and they got their lunches, and then I came back, but there was more traffic, and I'm here. I'm sorry I'm late.
I'm so glad you're here, and you're here now. Take a seat. Come in. I'm Chelsea.
Hi. I'm Opal. I'm, always forgetting things and a mess of a mum, and I'm always late too.
You prioritised your kids this morning, and that's something good mums do. I hope you have time for yourself this afternoon.
Well, I have a few hours before I have to go to work, but I live with my mother-in-law at the moment, and she's constantly yelling at me. So, I'm going to go home and get yelled at.
Why is she yelling at you?
She yells at me for everything. So, yesterday it was because, I forgot to hang the washing out, and then the day before that it was because I forgot what my daughter's ballet shoes are, and she thinks it's because I'm a lazy mum, but it's not. I just forgot.
I'm sure you're not a lazy mum. You prioritise your kids, but I can see you're memory causes you some trouble?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's making some trouble.
Yeah. Do you have any thoughts on why that could be happening for you?
Um, I mean, honestly, I haven't really thought about it, but like I guess I'm stressed, and stress impacts memory, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Stress can impact our memory. However, also the experience of violence can have an effect. And Opal, I do want to explore obviously your living situation. I know that's why you're coming to see me. However, I think it would be really useful if we have a little bit of a chat about the violence that you've experienced. It just can help me to understand what's going on for you and your kids, get an idea of what services you've got, what supports you've got. I don't want to miss anything. Would that be okay?
I mean, yeah, it's not really why I'm here.
I do want to talk more about your living situation, Opal, and come back to talking about your mother-in-law. But I do want to talk about your experience of violence and how that could be affecting you. Do you mind if we do that?
Yeah, okay, that makes sense.
Let's start with talking about your late husband. Did you feel safe with him?
Uh, I mean, most of the time, but like all men, sometimes he could get angry, and when he was angry, sometimes he'd be physical.
When you say physical, what did that look like?
Like, if I said something silly, he would like slap me over the head, but like in a playful way. And sometimes I guess if I was yelling at him, or like, I'd yell back when he was upset, then, he'd grab my arms and he'd pin me against a wall, just to make me, listen, I guess.
Yeah, okay. So he'd slap you around the head and he'd pin you against a wall. Would that hurt?
Yeah.
At any time, did he ever hold you in a way, like against your neck, that you felt like you couldn't breathe?
No. I mean once. But like I hadn't seen him that angry before, and it was just one time. It was, probably about a year before he died.
Okay, so about 2 years ago. Can you tell me what happened?
Yeah, like, we were just having a fight. It was Christmas time. And I remember I just lost my job, but I really wanted to go see my sister for Christmas, and he said that we didn't have enough money to drive there because she lives, in another state. And, I just, I kept yelling at him, and then he yelled at me, and I guess, he just got so mad because I wasn't listening, and we were in the room, in the bedroom, and like he pushed me on the bed, and I remember he pushed my head into the pillow, and he had his hand was on the back of my neck, and his knee was in my back, and he was just so angry. I remember his voice. He said, "Oh my God, what am I going to wrap the body in?" But he was just angry. I don't think he was going to hurt me.
That must have been so scary for you. Can you tell me what happened after that?
Yeah, like I don't really remember what happened immediately after, but I know I went to sleep, and I remember this because Ethan, my son, he was so upset because we missed his soccer practice because I was sleeping, and his dad wasn't there. He'd like gone to his mum's house or something, and but yeah, I remember Ethan and we spent some time together and played soccer in the backyard instead, and so he was fine. And then his dad came home the next day, and everything was back to normal.
Okay. Opal, sometimes when the pressure is applied to our neck, it can cut off the supply of oxygen and blood from our heart up to our brain, and that can cause us to lose consciousness or black out. Do you think that may have happened?
I mean, honestly, I just felt like I fell asleep. Yeah.
Is it normal for you to just fall asleep?
Like after an argument?
Yeah. Yep.
No. I guess not. Maybe I did black out.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
Women who I've worked with have reported to me that they've lost control of their bladder or bowel. Do you think that could have happened?
like peed themselves?
Yeah.
Oh, no. I would have remembered if that happened. It definitely didn't happen.
I'm sure you would have.
Yeah.
It would stick out.
Yeah.
What about, did you have any pain in your head? So feeling, being choked can cause us to feel like we've been hit in the head, even though the pressure's here. Did you remember feeling any pain in your head? Dizziness?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. Some people who've been choked get bruises around their neck, and they feel pain in the neck. Did that happen?
I don't think so. I don't remember.
So the bruising and swelling can take a couple of days to come out, and it can cause difficulty swallowing or talking. It can kind of make your voice a bit raspy. Do you remember that happening?
No. I mean, if it did, I didn't notice. Not that I remember.
Yeah. Look, Opal, I know that we've spoken about that your memory is causing you some trouble. Has this always been the case?
No. I mean, honestly, I used to be really smart at school. I was a school prefect, and I never had any problems with my memory. But then, I left school and I got married, and I don't know where along the way, but yeah, I guess to answer your question is no, it hasn't always been this bad.
So it's been probably around the last 2 years, or you're not sure?
Yeah, I mean, I'd probably say I've noticed it in the last 2 years, but I also haven't been sleeping either. So, sleep can cause memory problems too, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Can you tell me more about your sleep? That's causing you some trouble?
Well, yeah. I mean, I have a daughter who refuses to sleep in her own bed, and I have a son who is, wetting the bed every night. So I get woken up, really early. So I guess, when we talk about my sleep, I guess I could say that I sleep like a normal mum.
Same. If you didn't have the kids, do you reckon you could sleep better?
Honestly, I don't think I've had a good night's sleep, for at least 2 years. Even when, my sister took my kids for the weekend before my husband died, and I still didn't get a good night's sleep without them. So yeah.
You sleep like a mum.
Yeah, I sleep like a mum even without them there.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Opal, have you spoken to your doctor about anything that you've been feeling over the last couple of years?
Like my memory and...
Yeah, like your memory and the stress and not being able to sleep?
No, I don't have a doctor. I definitely have one for the kids though. But yeah, I don't really have time to go to the doctor.
Mums don't. We prioritise our kids, absolutely. However, I do think it would be really useful if you did see a doctor and have a chat about some of the things that you have been feeling and, with the stress and your memory problems and the tiredness. We have some doctors that we could get you linked with. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I don't have a lot of money.
That's okay. We have a list of doctors that some of them bulk bill, some of them charge a little, some charge a lot. We could go through that if you'd like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Look, Opal, I think it would be really useful if we use this medical referral form. I like to use it. It helps us to hand over to the doctor, and so that if on the day you forget anything, that you can refer back to it, but also the doctor has an understanding on why you're going. Is it okay if we go through it together?
Yeah. I think this is a good idea. Yes.
Awesome.
You just watched Chelsea demonstrate how to screen for strangulation and assess a client's initial medical needs. Let's run through some key takeaways. In the introduction, Geraldine reminded us that screening processes need to be conversational, relational, and focused on understanding clients' experiences. Clients are more likely to disclose violence if you create a safe and supportive environment, rather than sound like you're completing a procedure or a form. Chelsea was prompted to screen for strangulation because the referral mentioned Opal had experienced domestic and family violence. Screening for strangulation can be done for all clients, but it's most important for clients who disclose a prior history of domestic, family, and sexual violence. We also want to screen for strangulation if the client discloses or presents with signs and symptoms of strangulation and/or a brain injury. Chelsea heard Opal mention multiple times that she struggles with her memory. Although memory problems can also be associated with experiences of violence, stress, grief, and other medical conditions, they're also a sign of a potential brain injury. You saw Chelsea use follow-up questions to find out if Opal had experienced anything that could have caused a brain injury. Screening for strangulation early in a client's contact with your service is always recommended because the risk of serious injury is much higher in the days following recent strangulation. Chelsea knew from the referral she had a bit more time with Opal because the perpetrator of violence was no longer alive. So, if Opal had said she didn't want to talk about her experiences of violence today, Chelsea would have put this in her case notes and screened for strangulation in a later session. And finally, some of the ways you saw Chelsea use a trauma-informed and mindful approach was by building trust through clear communication about why the questions were necessary. Chelsea empowered Opal to explore how her experiences of domestic violence might be contributing to the things that are currently troubling her. In her case notes, Chelsea put a prompt to revisit any needs Opal's children might have, so remember the bedwetting and the attachment issues. Here, her goal would be to connect them to early intervention services. She also wants to discuss Opal's current living situation to ensure she's safe right now. This is important because we know other family members can reinforce the perpetrator's control and continue the violence.